There's a guy who's running for governor in Virginia. His name is Stewart. He's a Republican, and he loves his Civil War memorials in the South. He's very upset that New Orleans is going to take one of those down. A little bit of a problem. That statue celebrates people who basically went against multiracial healing and wanted to put white people back in charge. I am being awfully kind with that description, okay? Now, the Civil War memorials a lot of times are for generals that fought in the Civil War on the southern side. See, that would be the side that committed treason against the United States of America. That would be the traitors. That would be the people that led to a war that cost hundreds of thousands of American lives. You can't get a bigger traitor to America than starting a war against America. So obviously, Stewart is deeply un-American, but let me tell you exactly what he said. First, graphic 18 here. He says, nothing is worse than a Yankee telling a Southerner that his monuments don't matter. Corey, I would argue there's something slightly worse. That is monuments celebrating the people who tried to protect slavery. I would argue slavery is worse. I would argue when your side committed treason against the United States of America, that was worse. I would argue you still, after hundreds of years, supporting traitors who wanted to, and why did they go to that war? Why did they kill all those people? Because they wanted to, well, they still call it property rights. No. It's not about slavery. It's about states' rights. State right to do what? Own slaves. No, but it's not about slavery, it's about property rights. Which property? The human beings that I had for property called slaves. Yeah, it's about slavery, Corey, it's about slavery. I would argue that that's worse than taking down your stupid monument to traitors who committed treason against America. I love America, that's we got an American flag right back there. Corey, apparently you don't, you should look into it. When this came about, the good folks there are explained here at Mediaite that the tweet appears to be in response to a stealth decision by the city of New Orleans to remove the Liberty Place monument. The 35-foot obelisk commemorates an 1874 white uprising against a Civil War era biracial municipal government. Yay, white uprisings. To lynch people who are of the opposite race. Nothing worse than a Yankee come telling a Southerner to take down his monuments when we went around lynching black people because we wanted to own them. Nothing worse, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, there's many things worse, including you, Stewart. Here's another tweet by him, so unabashed. He says, tonight they tear down the statue of Beauregard. This is just the beginning. Yeah, that's right, it is just the beginning. That's the guy who started the Civil War, by the way. He's the Confederate military officer that ordered firing on Fort Sumter and started the war. So, well, that's, that was Northern aggression, having a base down here in South Carolina. South Carolina was part of the United States of America. Of course, the United States military would have had a base there. You guys are the ones who seceded. Now, we still, to this day, can you imagine? We still have all these people, a significant chunk of the population, who are still defending the Southern war of treason against America. They say, oh, well, no, Jake, that's not fair, man. They had to fire on America. They had to commit treason because it was their right to secede. Hey, don't call yourself an American. You want to call yourself something else? You want to call yourself a Confederate? You're proud of your slave-owning heritage and the deeply racist culture that used to exist in the South, that apparently still exists to this day because you guys are still defending it. Call yourself something else, okay? Call yourself a traitor, call yourself whatever you want, but you're not an American if you rebel against America, if you commit treason against America, and you actually literally go to war and kill Americans. You are not an American if that's the argument you're making. So take off your American flags, put down so just own it, say yeah, you're right. We love the racism back in the day. We wish it was still the case. The monuments to the racism we love, that's our heritage, and we're not really Americans. We're this country that would have been a really crappy country if we had succeeded in seceding. We'd have almost no industry, and we would have been pathetic losers. A lot of the South now actually still some of the poorest, worst off states in the country. Now, You're all back in the country. I don't want you to go in that direction. I want you to be great. I want Mississippi and Alabama the best states in the country. And I think we can help you get there, but in order to get there, you have to actually do some progress instead of clinging on to the past. And this guy's from Virginia. Say, oh no, don't take down my monument. Nothing worse than a Yankee. Yankee, who the hell are you talking about? All right, I wanna help them get to the future. I wanna help their citizens. I wanna make Virginia better. I wanna make Mississippi, Alabama, the whole South better, okay? We wanna make South Carolina better. But these guys are standing in the way because they think the old backwards ways were the right ways. They think it was a great idea that the South declared war against the United States of America. I think it was a terrible idea. Corey Stewart should never be elected, not even dog catcher. You can be elected to some sort of Klan official, that's God bless. You know, you want to be a Grand Wizard or something, have at it, Corey Stewart. Membership helps fund the Young Turks. You know one great thing about that? That means we're not accountable to anyone but you guys. That's why we're strong together, because we built this show around you. Come build it even bigger and better at tytnetwork.com/join.